And then there's,
Get off and then I'll.
there we go.
Just based on this.
Okay, this is the September 29th Finance Committee meeting.
I have one item here that didn't make the agenda. It was an oversight last night, and we dealt a couple meetings ago with the procurement policy and dealing with items under $7,500. And I brought before you this morning some proposed language that would add an item that says contracts or purchases $7,500 that are not consistent with the adopted budget.
Well,
The adopted budget.
I think what you missed, the key word is exceeding. So contracts or purchases exceeding
Yes.
$7,500 and are not consistent with the adopted budget required council approval. So anything under
Yep.
75,
We
with this
can-
change, you would have that authority.
Yes, that we can do that without having to come to council, so.
Okay. I don't have a problem with it, so.
I'm
Anyone
comfortable.
else?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we'll bring it back for
Yeah.
the entire procurement policy with this
With that
one
change.
sentence redlined at the next council meeting.
Okay.
If Brandy's ready.
Sounds good. Finance report. I listed as Treasurer Martin, so I guess,
I'm gonna,
Alan, you're gonna do this one?
I'm gonna do this part and drift away. Sales tax collections, as you can see there, through September, we've actually, September year, projections was 2.5% above our projection of $9,900. For the year, we're $163,476 above projection, which is 4.69%. So we're in good shape there. We've got, a quarter left for 2017. As part of the biennial review, Finance will be looking at projections for the remainder of the biennium, and so as you work through the biennial review, there'll be conversation on sales tax going forward for the rest of the biennium as you work through that. So all in all,
Good news.
sales tax collections, good news. Real estate excise tax, our other major revenue that we track to give us some idea on the economic condition of the city and the activity there, both showing real estate activity, is $691,000 for the year. We had budgeted $600,000, so we're besting that. The bulk of the activity, of course, is in those warmer summer months, and we're coming into the slower period of time for the year. I would note then, of course, our December-January amount is pulled into December for January, which gives us will show a large amount at the end of the year as well, and that's done as the direction of the auditor.
Alan, the 600,000 is budgeted, that's just through September, not for the whole year.
That was for the whole year?
It was for the whole year, so we could take the rest of the year off and still be 91,000 over.
I think that's the plan.
Was there any large transaction in September driving that? That's a big year-over-year.
I think that's a 2-month delay. Is it a 1 or 2 month delay?
I think it's 60 days.
Yeah, I think it's a 2-month delay.
But I'm just saying. in
Yeah, no, I
category,
realize that, but
I'd
So you have to go
go
back.
back and.
I don't know that there was
Just
nothing hit the
volume.
paper. I think its volume is up on overall.
Yeah.
I mean, we have.
We can look, that's a good question. We'll go back and look. I didn't see anything, Sean, but.
you would expect some commercial property to have sold, huh?
Might have been it's probably a lease though. The old Kmart building, that's sell.
Yeah, that
No,
would
they're
be a
leasing it.
good
That's not that
thing.
big.
They didn't sell it. They're leasing it.
I
Tenant
want to
improvement.
make a comment though, and I didn't bring it with me, but I saw a report, and it's put out by a firm in California, and they analyze sales tax revenue nationwide, and you can buy the report per state, and I may personally do that. It's like $160, but you get a wonderful report. But it showed from 2010 to the end of 2015 or 16 that Port Orchard sales tax revenue had increased second most in the state of Washington.
From what period of time?
2010 I'm gonna have to check. I think it was 2010 to 15. It could have been to 16. Yeah.
Well,
Or it
that'd-
could have been 11 to 16. It seems to me it was a current 5-year
Would
period.
that take in the annexation though? So then all the
It was
properties
after,
west-
and this is sales tax, and it was after the annexation, that I remember. So it may have been 2011. I just thought that was interesting, and it breaks it out by industry where the sales tax, percentages come from. It's a wonderful report, and I just get a sample of it, so I don't get to see. It was forwarded to me by Patty Graf Hoke. And anyway, it was, I thought, interesting, informative, educational. Yeah.
When I looked at, last night, it's been a couple months since I looked at it, but I looked at the top 50, 60 businesses, and as many people rail on that we've got the jail up the hill, but there's contractors that provide service to that, and one of, it was in the top 15 anyway, was a contractor that we were getting the sales tax from the county paying the contractor, so there's things under the radar that I didn't even register me in, and one of the top 50 was the sales tax on Netflix. It was a significant number.
I did that, it's probably been 7, 8, 9 years ago, before Amazon. But the thing that jumped out at me was the home shopping network.
Mm.
The huge amount, this is all of Kitsap County, but it's just astronomical. I mean, half the population of Kitsap County must sit up at 2 o'clock and watch that Goofy Channel and buy stuff, but it certainly was like you've seen. Wow, this is surprising.
And while I want to see more activity downtown, the 2 blocks that everybody gets so excited about represents less than 1%. It doesn't move the needle a lot, and so.
Okay.
My biggest thing I'm disappointed about is Noah's been here 30 days, and we only have, and he brought in one of the 2 months under 5 figures. There, if we could have found $25 someplace, 10,000.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me know next
Should've
month.
gone
I might donate to 25 just to get him happy.
Dinner 2 more times.
Okay.
Well, I just go back and, what do you think, Noah, they told me back in April.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when we started seeking a new treasurer.
He announced
And here
his
we are.
retirement.
That is right.
And it all worked out. The other, I've got provided the various funds, total funds, and this is through the end of, I want to say, September. The one thing I wanted to point out, and before I depart, is I think we've done an excellent job on the stabilization fund. Currently, the $842,000 for the, we'll add $140,000 to that over the course of the biennial budget. Our goal was there to do 2 months of revenue, 2 months or 2 months of expenses, which we put at $1.4 million, so we're well on our way.
So that'd be 980. Can we find 20 grand to make it $1 million?
So we're gonna be, and we get interest now, we're getting some interest on that, a couple thousand a year, I guess it is, $1,100 a year, that's starting to help us. So anyway, I just want to commend you all for putting that in place and working with the finance committee to actually set that aside. So that's going to give you some breathing room, and already does, I think. I think some of our decisions are based on that we have $1 million there. You're almost there to the $1.4 million. So I think that's a good thing, and just encourage you to continue to look at that. And then the other funds are represented there. I leave you with good, strong utility reserves. I'm proud of that. The current expense, street fund, general funds are strong. And so we're in pretty good shape on a cash basis. Noah's going to, as we talked earlier this spring, one of the things he's gonna do is look at maybe a chart that would tie this back to our revenue sources hearings. We had talked about that earlier.
Okay.
And I talked to Noah about that. He'll have this revenue sources hearing here in October. He said, yeah, he'll work with the committee to come up with a kind of a snapshot that ties that back to what your projections were, and ties that council presentation back to maybe a customized, usable cash and investment total. And then same way on the fund balance reserves, which are your REIT amounts and your various different impact fees and that type of thing. And he's been working with staff to identify those as they flow into the various projects to be able to leverage that money into that. So
Just to confirm, so I see the McCormick Woods Fund, and we're gonna try to get that, Nick is still working to try to get that additional
Oh, that the county has.
250,000. But and I see the Bayside money is still in there. Is the transportation, is that the TBD and the TIF? Or is that just the TIF? Because we have two sources. That last one, the fund balance is just transport, is that TBD and TIF combined?
I'd have to go back, Mark, and you're asking what have we collected in transportation impact fees and what have we collected then in the
TBD.
car tabs?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is that a combined?
I'll have to go, well, the way it's all in one fund and then it's accounted for. I'll go back and look at that.
It'd be nice to break, it's a good question, Mark, and it'd be nice if those were broken out so that we could see
Correct, somewhere that was, I was,
and traffic
Because
impact
they're
fees.
used differently.
right,
Yes.
because before you said
Um,
something, I was wondering what the TBD
I'm
amount was.
not sure it's even in there at all. I'd have to think that, because these
We're
are impact
spending it.
fees and the transportation.
Those dollars
The
first.
impact, the car tab isn't an impact fee.
No,
No, it's
No, it's not.
It
It's not.
probably
This is
goes
the
right
impact.
into the general
This is Fund
fund.
111.
So this is-
It goes into the street fund.
okay, so this is just TIF, this is just
Yeah.
impact fees,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. This is just the
Okay.
impact fees. This isn't that, no.
So we don't have.
What line,
It's on the front page.
two.
Yeah.
I think it's under
Impact
304,
mitigation.
304,
street capital
okay.
projects,
so street capital project is the TIF.
Maybe
Yeah, that's correct.
TBD.
TBD.
No,
No,
TBD.
TBD
up
is
to
two.
111.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Move up.
Oh, there we go.
yeah. Right.
No,
No.
No,
No.
111 is the TIF.
The-
111 is the
I was
TIF.
gonna
Yeah,
say,
the,
that's a lot of
the
money.
impact
That's-
fee is in the street, is a
Is in the
revenue to
street
the,
fund.
is a revenue to the street fund. It's-
And so it's 2,002.
Yes, but you're looking at, Mark's question is, what did we collect in?
Correct,
In car tabs?
correct.
Okay, I'll go
Right.
back and pull that out. That's a
Right.
separate, that's different than what, but that's what you were.
Or
asking.
I was just basically saying, like Rob was saying, so we can track both, so we generally know what do we have for maintenance versus what do we have for debt
Impacts.
service.
Well, on the TBD, I had that set up, or the car tab is into the street fund. And it's first dollar in, first dollar out, because you can't save it up.
Right.
You gotta spend it. So it's actually allocated first dollar in, first dollar out.
Yeah, 'cause we have
But
to
we-
spend it every year.
Well,
Right.
Yeah, there's some constraints on it. That doesn't mean you have more money in it, so it's really a budget question of when do you budget and allocate it to what? Okay, so it's not in a fund that's building up, is what I'm saying.
Like traffic impact fees.
Right.
Going to a fund to build up.
Right.
Right,
If they're on a 6-year,
Right.
right. Okay, does that help? But I'll go back and make a note here.
Figure out what the
Pull that
number
out.
is.
I will. It's coming in a lot faster than I thought it was. What did I figure, like 198,000
Yeah,
for
we
the
had
year?
figured about 200,000 a year.
Right.
Every $10 was about $100,000 to us.
Right.
But we didn't
right.
think we had a full year this year.
Right.
And so we had a smaller number and it's coming in faster
Faster.
than we thought.
Yeah, a lot higher. I had.
Just have Gray and Titus keep selling those cars to local people.
I vote for that.
Well,
Al, you're
the
talking
ta-
about that TBD vehicle fees?
Yeah, the actual car tab, yeah,
Yeah, so it looks like you budgeted 152,000.
right.
And year to date, I think this is through the end of August, is 113,000.
Right, that's
Okay.
exactly right. It's coming in like double. Because that was for the biennium, isn't that a biennium number?
No, this is just for the fiscal year.
Oh, so we're pretty close, right on
Yeah,
there.
we're almost right on.
Okay, okay. Well, that makes me feel even better. I like being close to being right.
Yeah.
Close. Okay, so it's coming in about where we thought it was.
I think it's still a little.
Well, we're probably catching up though, because
Yeah.
we started the year behind.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Didn't get anything right out of the gate.
Okay, so there was your answer.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's
No one,
true.
you know, Martin gives you the, well, you know, I'll get back to you. Noah just grabs the report.
I couldn't even remember what fund it was in. I did figure that out. That's why he's here and I'm leaving. So that's end of my report, and so thank you all for your support through the years. I think this is about my 96th meeting, I suppose. There were some special meetings in there. I was only late once. I got stuck on Highway 3 one time. Townsend called me and said, "Where are you?" I said, "Start without me," and they said, no, they were gonna wait, so I had to hurry up. Anyway, I
Didn't
only
get a
late-
ticket, so
No,
that's
I was
good.
only late one time, and, you know, I'm not a morning person. I wouldn't know the sun came up if I wasn't just getting in. Anyway, thanks again for your support.
Oh, thank you. Are you leaving?
No.
Okay, okay.
Trying.
Okay, well, you,
already
you-
away.
I said you scooted out Tuesday night, so,
We had a nice party yesterday and told some good
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah, it's nice.
yeah.
Okay, 3-month lighting project.
So we put in here a large Excel file, everybody's got in front of them. Now this is really Alan's baby that he started, and we're gonna take forward and continue to improve on. We're gonna use this as a tool for tracking, for communicating, and ensuring that we're spending proceeds in the proper places and account for expenditures properly. So I'm just gonna lay out the structure of this conceptually. There is a lot more updating that needs to be done. We just haven't got the information yet, and so we're still working through that process. But I want you to understand how this is laid out, so you can read this at least. So the top column, if they look at this as one big group, we have estimated expenditure plan. So early on in this project phase, Finance and Public Works put together what they would anticipate as far as how we would spend on a cash flow basis for this project. And this is just an estimate right now. Mark and Mike are working on giving us the updated information from the contractor,
We just got.
which we just got this morning, so we haven't incorporated that into this spreadsheet yet, but now that we have the information, we'll true it up. But it gives you a sense of the timing of the cash flows of the project. Again, what's important about this is, for all our revenue sources, we have different restrictions on the revenue sources, on what we can use it for and how quickly we have to spend different piles. So Heidi and I in finance will look at our revenue sources and map this out on the bottom piece. So before we get there, I want to point out one thing I pulled out here. As you see, we have total expenditures for this project estimated at $16.93 million. So roughly $17 million. You'll notice I have one row there that says contingency of $1,070,000, okay? So in previous work, whenever I've worked with construction projects, I've always wanted to identify the contingency amount, because contingency is that. It's not an expected expenditure of the project, it's contingency. We anticipate change orders, we anticipate overruns, and so that's our contingency fund. But the tighter we can manage our construction project to the actual construction contract and cost, those are all savings to the city, all savings to the taxpayers, all savings to our other sources. So I always like to pull that out to help us manage against the project itself, and then understand what we're spending against the contingencies.
Okay. Well, just, so the sheet we got from, basically this is from Berger. They did take the contract amount and they did add that 8% contingency in, so their breakdown includes the 8% contingency, so you'll have to back that out.
Okay.
Do they have their 8% by month or as a column?
I think they took the total with the 8%. And
Oh,
so,
they've applied at 8%
Yeah.
across the board.
Yeah,
For
they're planning on
construction.
spending it.
yeah, so you'll, I mean, it's just, well, they're being conservative.
Well, no,
because-
and again, I think that's why you pull out contingency.
They're trying to
right?
spend the 8%.
They're trying to spend it. So you
Right.
want your contractors to be on target with what they bid on
Right,
the project.
exactly.
And explain the overruns. for
So you'll
each
just,
individual area.
I'm just saying you'll have to,
Yeah, yes. we'll-
back that 8%
Yeah, we will,
out.
we'll account for the contingency.
So just a quick question, clarification. So we've, our budget expenditures of 16.9, budgeted contingency of 1. So the total project right now has roughly 18 million.
Correct, the total budget
Great.
for the project is 18 million,
Yep.
but of the 18 million, there's $1 million that's budgeted for
Yep,
contingencies.
great.
Yeah, so it is budgeted.
Yep.
The next section is this midsection here, and these are actual expenditures. So this does actually reflect expenditures for the project year to date
So we're a little behind.
and by month. So year to date, we've spent probably about $507,000. It's a little small writing there. And you can see the different categories in which we are identifying where the expenditures are being booked against. This month, we received the largest of our expenditures of $357,000. So, we're starting to get underway, which is good. The next section you'll see is this in this block. This is really for finance, again, tracking bond proceeds. So with these construction projects, as you may know, you have to spend bond proceeds in a timely manner. And so we have a 24-month construction spend down requirement. We have 6-month milestones that we must meet with these bond proceeds in order to be eligible for our arbitrage rebate exemption. So again, finance will use the cash flow timings that will populate in here and marry it up against our requirements for our bond proceeds to ensure that we're tapping those funds when we need to and with those milestones, as well as timing it with the other funding sources to meet their requirements. That's the real challenge, is that all these funding sources have different requirements.
Right.
They all want you to spend their money first, and they all have restrictions on it, so it's really a
But you can't
balancing
spend it.
act.
We want theirs spent first, but you can't spend it this way.
Yes, and you can only spend on these certain things, so and so that's why it's gonna be really important that Public Works and Finance partner together. What I've talked with Mark and Mike about is having regular check-in meetings with our Tremont project in particular, to get on page and roll this out again and say, hey, where are we at with the project, spending, any concerns coming up. So we're gonna start that process soon.
Would there be value to add a line down here that speaks to what those requirements are, like every 6 months? Like if we had
It's actually in there. It's again very small writing, so I'll point out. So if you see to
The
the far
580?
left, yeah, it says IRS bond
requirement,
proceeds
got it. So it's
balance
580,
target.
so you've got every 6
Yes.
months. Perfect.
Yeah.
Great, so there.
Yeah, so it's there.
So the
Good check and
6-month
balance.
requirement is, what, 580,000?
Correct. Correct.
and I know that Heidi has a spreadsheet that we worked on that specifically looked at each of the funding sources, because TIB, for example, only they have a maximum of 20% that can go to CACM. So, and there are other things that they won't pay for, and the federal money, there's certain things that we're not spending that. So she actually has a very intricate spreadsheet that says, okay, these funds can only go to these certain things. And when you have a 5-schedule construction contract, there's a lot of moving parts, but it's a really workable tool at this point.
I mean,
So-
even like Tuesday's construction meeting, when Mark's saying we need more signage out on the, out on Highway 16. The person there that was representing the feds though said, but you can't use our dollars on it. It can only be within the construction.
It's outside the area of potential effect.
Out
Yeah,
there.
so we have to use local dollars on those signs that we feel we need.
So we gotta track all that.
Yeah, and that just speaks that there's gonna be a really great partnership between Public Works and Finance. For every invoice that comes in, what is this for? What funding source do we use to ensure we're compliant? So the next section you'll see here is again a small print, funding sources. So there we've identified all the different funding sources that total up to $18 million. Again, I'll start from the top. Bond proceeds for the streets, part of the project. Bond proceeds for the storm, part of the project. And the reason we identified it as street and storm is this connects to how the debt service is going to be paid. So a portion of the debt service payment will come from the storm fund, and a portion will come from the street fund. And in order to tie that payment, because they're enterprise funds, In order to justify using enterprise funds to make those payments, because this is again general obligation pledge, we have to identify which piece of the project those utilities paid for. Make sense? Yeah. So we identified that, and we also applied the allocation. You guys have already adopted the debt service payment for that based on this percentage allocation between the two of the bond funds. The next we have the TIB state grant money, which Mark just started speaking to, and in here identified the limitations. So it's limited to road construction, 20% of the CACM, and that's the construction administration contract manager.
Construction manager.
Yeah,
See,
yeah, I'm used to calling it GCCM, General Construction Contract Manager, so different terminology now, but, and then 5% for landscaping. And so again, very limited about what we can use those dollars for. As we move down to WASDOT, again, these are federal dollars. Now this is really important, and you guys are very much aware of the importance of tracking the federal dollars. So I'm not going with that. The next is, in this last legislative session, we were successful, and I'm not sure, I don't quite have the backstory of how we were successful, but we got $2 million out of the legislature, further state grant
Would
funds.
you say thank you?
well, we're still trying to obligate that money too. It's, I thought it was obligated. We got the award letter, we programmed it in the STIP, but WashDOT said, oh, well, you've not obligated it yet. So, well, so, you know, we're working on supplement 9 with local programs to get that. But in the past, Mark works at transportation, like for Bay Street, when we got that Connection Washington funds, and that's what they're actually calling it down there. They have to manually add in a line. So I sent an email asking for a draft of supplement 9 to get that obligated.
So again, we were successful. And then the last piece, we have identified some cash from our direct water sewer utilities. Now again, the total comes up to $18 million. You know, I'm pointing again the importance of that contingency. If as this project is incredibly successful and on time, on budget, and we don't need to tap that contingency, ideal, unlikely, those savings we would apply towards the bond proceeds, and we can potentially use that for additional street projects. Again, the way Alan crafted the bond resolution is very clever, which is, you know, for this project and other capital street projects. So if there is savings, we can potentially use those resources to work on another street project.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah. So this is the layout of the spreadsheet. At some point in the future, if you flip this over, we will develop some more graphs. That again, we want to communicate good information clearly. Right now, you don't see a whole lot because there's just not a whole lot of expenditures to communicate. And if you look at the scaling, it doesn't tell you much. So we're going to continue to work on the graph side. I just want to flip that over to show you that that's a work in progress. So this does need to be updated with the actuals, and we will continue to work on this and roll this out to you with each Magic Finance Committee meeting just to hear an update.
Did you have anything you wanted to report to the Finance Committee on the project itself? That's kind of why we asked Mike here if there was anything, because major things we'd bring back here. There's been nothing major, but we thought if there was anything that came up on the project, formally it'd come back to this body to let you know first. If something.
You know, a project this size, you know, the contractor by now, if there's something major, we should know about it. So at this point, it's just a lot of little things, and the unknowns have mostly been found here at this point. So
I would say the biggest issue is
Schedule 74.
the Schedule 74 appears to be driving the project as opposed to the project with the Schedule 74. All the issues and all the problems and all the headaches right now are, and really the scheduling issues are driving the Schedule 74. So the contractor is trying to figure out how they're going to, when they first looked at, when they were going to do like the deep, they wanted to work from depth up.
Correct.
But there's so many issues with poles and joint utility trenches and things that they're not able to go from the bottom up because they're having to wait too long for these other things to get out of the way. So
But the transmission main, you'd think you'd be able to move that pole over 10 feet. but there isn't enough slack in the transmission lines are there, and they don't wanna, PSC is busy too, and they don't wanna move this, so they're looking, they thought they would just do it all in one, felt like Mark said, you work ground up and you put the wires in the ground and you move on, and it isn't gonna be that simple. They're looking at a phasing of it and doing half of it, and it's a lot more complex. And then the other one is that drain down by the bridge, and I don't know if they've resolved that yet either, the change order on that.
Yeah, that's just, WashDOT had to approve it because it's their facility. And it should be
Well,
done.
there was a kind of an unknown under drain that was associated with the overpass that, to me, it's pretty obvious what it was, but they had to confirm what it was and what they were gonna do with it, and
So that's why there's all those piles down there at the end, and they kind of worked up the hill. They were supposed to start at the bottom and work up, and they started at the bottom and went, whoa, what's this? And so they've been working up here, and they'll have to go back down over there on the outfall.
so looking at costs and contingencies, I would say at this point, what they were talking about the other day, Tuesday, was to keep the contractor moving, and if they do this joint utility trench in 2 phases, there's gonna be some interim setting of poles that the city's gonna have to pay for that, and they'll move. So instead of just doing what they were gonna do and then the poles will go away, they're actually gonna have to move a pole back or poles back, and then the city will have to pay for that additional step. But, the alternative is to kind of like shut down.
Yeah, we can't turn the power off and cut the lines down for 6 months.
So that speeds up also the city's doing our ancillary project, which is, once everything's underground, we have to reconnect everybody. So we had a certain timeline that wasn't on the critical path to get that separate contract out, and now it is. So we've got to get that done and out on the street. And then there's one other item that we're looking at is, when we designed the project, it was designed just as the project. And we weren't looking at what was developing potentially on the sides. But since things have been starting to crack, as far as we've had a number of the homes, for example, come in at redevelopment pre-applications, and we've already got the gas station that have come back in for the 3rd time. Our design didn't accommodate upsized services, or even stubbing out storm drainage, and so
Or natural gas lines.
Or
So,
lines.
yes, last thing we want to do is 3 years from now be putting
There's some-
a cut all the way across this new street.
Right, so Mike and I we got a plan yesterday, I think, day before, of taking the plan, which would be a city expense, to stub out storm drainage, for example, out on the backside of the sidewalk. So as somebody develops from a home to a mixed use, they'll at least have something to hook into. They'll have to attenuate and mitigate their increased flows, but they'll have something to hook into. And we're looking at least upsizing water services from 1.5 or inch to 1.5 inches, just a larger service size. That doesn't mean there's never going to be a situation where a specific use comes in and they're going to have to run a 6-inch
Right.
pipe in. But we're trying to limit the amount of future cuts to sidewalks and things.
Do we have a moratorium on cuts for the first?
We don't have that
That's
in
not in our
place
code yet.
On my checklist.
It's on the
Task
list.
list. But yeah, that's the plan, is to do a 5-year moratorium, so.
But we're really wanting to look at what we can do now to really scale that back.
On that lot there at Port Orchard Boulevard this morning, I saw a small pile of I-beams in there. Do you know what's going on there?
That's the soldier pile while we get in that vault, isn't it?
Yeah, we're just one place that they could drop off and not be in his way, but that's where our future vault's there, so, they probably just had a delivery and
Okay.
it could be involved,
I didn't-
because they'll be doing the west vault first, and so, yeah.
Right, we have 2 very large underground basketball courts. That's about the size they are. One on the west, one on the east. And as I said before, they're actually,
Right there at the boulevard?
Yeah, we have 2 enhanced treatment outfalls. We have Ross Creek to the west, and we have Johnson Creek to the east. So there are our actual first capital improvement storm drainage projects. And, you know, I want to make sure that's like clear to everybody,
Right.
because I know that the council wanted storm capital, not just the program management. And if you look at Tremont, that we have 2 fish-bearing streams that currently Tremont has no water quantity mitigation or quality mitigation. This project will add enhanced treatment and water attenuation for both basins. So it is truly a capital project.
We've done the falls versus having things like Lake Walmart, you know, versus having huge ponds. These aren't like more, we've got underground basketball courts is what the route we've gone.
But we're also using Futerra, which I don't know, get into the maintenance aspect of it, but we do have water treatment, cartridge treatment, like Paulsville has on their waterfront and their bioretention cells. So there's a water quality aspect as well. So,
And that obviously is part of the cash flow. Like I said, the West Vault, I think between the vault and the filter system, that's probably close to $1 million. And so
yeah.
when that gets as far as their bid, and we, in our meeting this week, they said they're getting close to the breaking point about whether or not, where it's gonna fit into their schedule. Originally, you know, right now, they're still planning on getting that start installation next month. But if they don't get approved shop drawings here soon, they might have to shift that just due to the weather and trying to stage for that. But
When you say approved, it's because of the outfall with the WashDOT, because we had the drawings already.
No, they,
well, yeah, we have our drawings, but then the actual contractor and the supplier, they actually prepare detailed shop drawings to say, we understand what the concept of the design was, because there's not a lot of details
Okay.
in our
the
civil
construction drawings have the general elevations, length, width, height, orifices relative to things, but the contractor has to submit actual fabrication drawings that show rebar and, you know, every little, you know, the water stops and
And who approves that drawing then?
Our
the team, the consultant and the team. Yeah, so we've already looked over a few
And WashDOT.
issues in WashDOT. WashDOT has to actually approve it in the plant. They have to stamp it at some point in the concrete that it's, so when it comes onto the site, they verified that it's Buy America steel, that the materials have been all pre-approved, that they've met the specs for the concrete and the sand and the aggregates and, you know, all that. It's that whole process. So when it comes on site, it's stamped, it goes in the ground, nobody comes back later and says, oh, we didn't have a chance to look at that. So the process has design, shop drawings, at the factory certification, then it goes in the ground.
You triggered something that I just recently heard about federal funding and expenditures of Buy America aspect. Are you certain that WashDOT certification is going to be acceptable, or do we have to go through an exercise as well?
No, well, the WashDOT, we're a non-CA, so they are our CA, and so everything that the contractor submitted had, and our CACM consultant.
What's the CA? You say
Uh,
we're not.
Press-trip construction.
No, it's
certified.
certified administration.
Certified.
So Paulsbo is CA, Bremerton is CA, I think Transit might be CA. We're not. We have to have local programs. And so one of the first things we did when we had the contract with ACI is WashDOT and Berger worked with the contractor to get the RAM and the ROM. So you have your record of materials, and then you have your ROM. That's a record of materials, and then the RAM is, I can't remember what the RAM is. Anyway, so what they do is WashDOT's material, they have a materials office. And so the materials office goes through every submittal and makes sure that what the contractor says they're gonna provide, that it meets all the spec. and it
Okay,
included
well,
that.
You answered my question, that where WashDOT is acceptable.
They're the boss. At this
So
point.
they're the one that's gonna be on the hook to
Yeah.
the feds if, for some
Yeah.
reason, it's determined that they didn't meet the Buy America standard.
Right, their Matt's lab has reviewed every, but the contractor as well, you know, they've turned in their certificates of origin, so it's up to our CACM team.
Yeah, what the contractor hands in typically isn't satisfactory, you have to validate or verify.
Well, yeah, but it's up to us. to-
WashDOT does that, then we're okay.
Yeah, we have to though make sure we get those certificates of origin, so.
Okay. Anything else? Good work.
That's great. His spreadsheet.
But they're doing it.
Yep.
Okay, and I'm glad Alan stayed, because now we're moving on to the mid-biennial review. And again, this is my first time going through a biennial budget, so this mid-review is a little new to me as well. And as Alan and I had talked about, and I reviewed the statutes, I saw this very similar to how I would treat an annual budget, in that each year we would do a mid-year review anyways.
Yeah.
And that's what I understood this mid-year to be, a review, kind of where we're at, where we go on the second half of our fiscal period, if you will. And then are there any major red flags, anything we need to talk about, to be concerned about? So, as we talked about before, we had pushed some documents out to the department heads, which are in your packet here. Department heads responded and put in their requests for adjustments during this biennial period. But I'll turn your attention to the bigger spreadsheet first, if you will. What you have in this spreadsheet, again, any type of spreadsheet, I always like to set up what we are looking at. I like to talk about that first rather than the numbers, just so everyone can read and we're talking about the same thing here. In their request that came back, we identified those specific bars, line items that are in the left-hand column. Again, our accounting codes, our expenditure accounting codes that were returned to us. So this doesn't encompass the entire budget because not all of the accounting codes are going to have some requests on it. So we identified those that did and that were important. So you see the first column is the 2017-18 budget. Well, let's go left to right. So you have your bars, accounting codes, you have the description from department, and then a little better description of what that classification is. The next column over represents what was budgeted for in the 2017-18 biennial budget. The next column over is what was budgeted for in the capital budget. And then third column over, first white column, is the director's requests. Next column over is the adjustments that we met with the mayor and review the requests, the adjustments that he directed us to make. And the final is just currently the tally, as we're in this mid-year process. So let's turn to, I guess, the director's requests. You'll see there were some cleanup items for finance, for HR management and information technology. And I'm just gonna go down these at a high level. Okay, so stop me if that's too much. Okay. The next request seemed pretty reasonable. The detention and correction center, higher jail costs, if you will.
Yeah, there's a new contract that you approved, or going to approve. I think you did,
It's
it was
next- no,
consent.
it's next meeting.
The next meeting.
It's just what the county's dictating.
Yeah. And as I understand, this relates to the number of inmates we're putting over the new higher rates.
Higher rate, it's high, it's
Beds.
a new higher rate for the bed days.
Yeah. And just so you know, this isn't isolated to Kitsap County. We saw this in Thurston County happening every year as well. Rates were going up. So I think that's a larger issue in this state with corrections. As these costs are rising for everybody, all cities are having to deal with this issue. Next, looking at community development, $22,250 of new additional requests. Next column, Public Works, we have $561,000 of new requests. So you come to a general fund grand total of roughly $670,000 of new requests. And again, the way this is framed up was that these would be additional budget authority.
500 you see there on the far right column, most of the way, that's what the undergrounding is ballooned to. That 1,500 feet of undergrounding. And unfortunately, we don't own a lot of those assets, so it's not gonna be as eligible for, like, even the streetlights, $120,000 of its streetlights, you'd think there are.
And where's that at?
Be from Blackjack Creek to the Marley Apartments.
Okay.
They're not probably it's highly likely they're not REIT eligible because we don't own our streetlights, PSC does. And the reason they're so expensive is because we have specialty streetlights and it's our responsibility to pay for them even though we don't own them.
What would it take for us to own?
Redoing our franchise agreement with PSC, they own
And
all of-
maintain,
They own and maintain all of our streetlights.
we just pay the power.
And our typical street light is covered, but when you go to a specialty street light, we have to pay this
Is this because
upcharge.
they have a cute little
Yeah.
thing on the top of them?
This is because they're cutesy, yeah, and the decorative pole, we want irrigation line inside of them for water and flower baskets, and a thing to
not
hang
down
a
there.
banner on, and
No, but this still, we had
It's
a.
the same pole.
We did the street lighting study, which, remember, that was, the city has a standard for
Downtown.
Tremont.
It takes it all
downtown.
the way that far.
even if we didn't plumb irrigation in it, it's the same street light from end to end on Bay Street. So anyway, I didn't mean to take you into the weeds, but that number's there, but
So did it,
I'm not
is
confident.
that driving the additional, your 200?
well, we thought it was 300 when we started, and as we've progressed through this, it's now to 500. So that's the extra
So that's why
200.
you added another
200. I'm not confident that at the end of the day, that 500 is going to be in what gets brought forward to the work study.
Well, we looked at originally what Bay Ford's doing is their frontage improvement, and then what we were doing, the undergrounding, but then when we went to the other piece, then there was an additional amount of frontage improvement that the city was gonna do, a street improvement, and so that's where the number jumped up to 500,000.
Yeah.
Is now it's really it's a complete frontage improvement from the Marley to the creek with the undergrounding.
Maybe when we get farther into Tremont and we haven't spent the contingency, maybe that's a candidate there.
Yeah, but will the timing work? Because it has to,
Let's- yeah.
the only reason to do this
I
is
know.
in conjunction with
I
the
know.
Titus remodel.
I know.
Yeah.
So I'm just.
That number's
I-
gonna grow if we don't do it at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah, and we're working hard to try to find, it's gonna be primarily a general fund expenditure because we can't.
Is this something we can talk to Brianna about?
Maybe. We could ask.
Can we do something because that, where we're talking about will go in front of our park?
Yeah. I hesitate there because if we change course from what we've been handing a certain representative, I mean, you've been in the room.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So anyway, we're.
Oh, that one. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so it's still here, and we're, holding bake sales, and I'm just.
It just is an opportunity
It
for
is,
us.
it's
It
such.
is,
it's
it
such
is.
a-
Yeah.
But, I might suggest a bigger holistic look citywide on how do you underground the utilities when these come up.
Yeah.
Correct.
And look at it, because this is like a 20-year, 30-year deal, and identify where are we gonna come up with the resources to do it. It's a bigger, we stubbed our toe on this one because it showed up, but, we should have been thinking about it, and we weren't.
My common sense approach to it, I look at the REIT money, we got REIT money in there, this is a capital project, but then you start looking at all the fine print and how it can be utilized, and it's, very little of it is gonna be eligible for refunding.
Water.
So,
Make sure we save that contingency fund on that bond.
Census meters was 30.
But will it transfer to this because that was road?
Well, it's capital,
Capital,
prattle.
okay.
It's the language I used was capital project.
Okay.
So it has to meet the definition of a capital project.
It just seems like there may be some creative way to include it in our park and our pedestrian path, that particular piece because of the location.
Just an out 27.
we are,
We're looking at
Yeah, we're,
Okay.
it's still there at this point. I'm
Yeah,
just,
no,
I'm just
yeah,
trying to be
no.
a realist too.
Right, no, exactly.
Okay, so we're down in the weeds here.
I got this in the weeds.
No, that was a good segue because that's a big dollar
It's a
value.
big dollar.
And there's a big change there. So, again, takes us down to a total request of 669,800. Maybe again, a big chunk that is due to that project in particular. As we move to the next funds, the water sewer storm, you see total requests of additional $1,075,000 of expenditure authority. So the total requests that we received from directors are $1.7 million of additional expenditure authority. Again, next column over shows you the mayor's adjustments. And I'm just gonna point out one that seems a little odd at first, because I point out, and I didn't quite understand myself, is if you look at the community development, line 4, they requested 22,000, and we said, that's great, but we're gonna cut you 52. You see the next line over. So I thought that was a little strange myself, and as I'm talking over with staff, what we found was that we had budgeted this contract in 2 places, both in the general fund and the street fund. So $41,000 of this cut is really just a cleanup item where we just budgeted twice. So no real impact, we're just getting out of the general fund, putting it in the proper street fund where it was already budgeted at,
Teach
so
him
no
to ask
impact.
for more money.
Oh, gotcha.
Teach him to ask for more
That's
money.
right, exactly. You
And
got a
one-
building.
One major, from the retreat, everybody said, hey, we need to update our parks plan, get it in the biennial budget review. It is not in there, and talking to Nick, so we would not have our parks plan is about to expire. We won't have a valid parks plan, and we won't be able to apply for any grants. The workload that we have in 2018, we don't need any more grants right now. I'm advocating that we will put that parks plan in the 2019 biennial budget, and there's just not, I mean, yes, planning department has the ability to do this, but we're not gonna implement any new projects. I'm not sure how we're gonna get all the projects we have on the table done.
And I think that's a good point, because being new to here, I hear about all the projects you guys got going on, and my eyes get really big. And how are you gonna manage this? Do we actually have the people to do this?
No.
I mean, it's great to keep piling, but you can overdo
Mike's
yourself. and then you
over
get
there with his
nothing
eyes
done.
real big too, because he's the one managing most of the stuff.
Yeah. And when we talk about the size, I mean, you got nearly $20 million of major projects between Tremont and the park. I mean, these are big dollars, big projects.
Yeah, and path, yeah, exactly.
And so if you stay focused on those and have success, you'll be better off in the long run.
Mike, we did not hire you through rose-colored glasses.
Nor did we hire you to
I'm glad
punish
you
you.
have faith.
That's right.
We've given him the tools to succeed. He's got a new computer in his office.
Hey, we'll
It's all
talk again
situated
for it.
and-
Yeah. Ellen, is there anything you want to add as far as the biennial review?
I just wanted to say that you did ask, going forward, you asked for, to start this off at the next work study. So I guess the question would be, what do you want the full count, you want this type of presentation for the full work study? Or what do you envision there to get the whole council involved?
I think this looks fine.
That would be that way.
Okay, we got the supporting documents.
Yes,
here.
those
Okay.
were the director's requests.
Right, so
It'd be nice.
are we going to do a review? I mean, in the past, Marcus came in and groveled, and we
I
have.
never grow.
Brought coffee.
Yes, I brought coffee.
I would prefer too of these if we redline the ones that I,
Right, because you've made some alterations.
Right, it would be helpful, like on mine, I can piece together the water and sewer pretty easily. Some of the street, I'm not really sure. It'd be good to, like, add a column. Let's say I'll go to my sheet. So if there was, even on this, if there was just a column on this, where you went down,
Show
so
the
that it
tracks
matched
and-
up to the big sheet, that'd be really
or
helpful.
if they were just red.
Yeah, just
If they
redline
showed
it.
up red.
Yeah, just red line, yeah.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
I would, my pitch is that to remember, and it's gonna come out of the finance committee, is gonna be the leadership group on this, is to message that this is a review.
Right.
I think that it
we're
doesn't
not doing
do
a
you
budget.
well, it doesn't do you well if we start to expand it into a mini budget.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think what happens then, is we're gonna lose sight of what we really, if we budgeted correctly to begin with, and this was our first time, and it'll continue to get better, like we had that one in there twice. It'll continue to get in there better and better, but if you message, hey, folks, this is a review, how have we succeeded in these first 9 or 10 months? What did we miss, and what do we need to correct? And what is it that's come along that we really now want to do that is a major priority? I think that's the way you need to look at this, and then you'll be better served, because I know Rob wants to take you through some visioning and looking forward already into the biennial budget for 2019 and 2020, and that's the time we were trying to free up, was really for that big picture piece. And we've heard that everybody is working, I think, at their maximum man hours, so that's really what you want to use this time for now, is that visioning part. So that's my pitch on it.
And Alan, could you expand a little bit, because we had talked about this, that there is some work that still isn't getting included, this, again, due to everyone's kind of maxed out now with Rebecca gone, so the rest of staff are picking up her workload. And the piece that we didn't get to review thoroughly was the salary and
Gotcha.
benefits rework. And so that didn't get incorporated in this, and so we're gonna again revisit that, probably in early January, I would guess, when we get everyone back together to really assess what that change was and the impact, and how that impacts 18 and 19 going forward.
Yeah, and the reason for that, of course, is we came out, that we made some assumptions when we did the salary review, and we had identified $193,000. That was the number that we had distributed. And then also we had gone back and checked and trued up our fund balances. And then we had some changes in January, February, when we went back and adjusted salaries again. Now, as part of that, the gal that had been doing salaries previously had changed, and Corey Pearson took that position. It wasn't as conservatively done most recently as the former clerk would have done it. And then on top of that, we had the salary survey. So my caution was to Noah is, I didn't build in the margin that I had in the past, because the idea, my charge, I believe, was to get the salary survey implemented, with the idea I would go back this summer and true that up, and as part of the biennial review, come back and say, here's some columns that have to be adjusted. I'm not talking about major amounts, don't want to run anything into the red. And we didn't, and Noah's correct. Everybody's been so busy, I didn't get that package done. So what I suggested to Noah was, on top of doing the ER&R fund with the cars, I said you might want to go ahead and pick up the salaries. So Noah's correct. He may come back to this body and say, hey, we've reviewed the salaries. Here's some slight adjustments. So
we could see a budget amendment to true that up, because we didn't get to that body of work in this process.
And it wouldn't be major, but it would just make sure, like I say, we didn't go into the red. I'd rather do that during the year, or have you do that during the year, than at the end of the year when it looks like maybe you missed something.
So quick question.
Oh, go ahead.
Just like on your DCD here, increase of expenses of $137,250, like it was requested. How come that's not tying back to the main spreadsheet of their total expenses?
Some of it is this isn't accurate. So like his copier, okay, he has cash flow. This doesn't need to be there. It's really when
There's a correction between him and the finance department.
So, and what's happening is when we do a copier lease now, we have to capitalize it and recognize the entire lease. From a cash flow standpoint though, he's got a copier. We believe we're gonna save money, because he's gonna get a little smaller machine, because he's moved over there by themselves. And we're gonna actually have a positive cash flow situation. He believed, though, he needed to recognize this capital lease in this adjustment, and he doesn't.
Well, the leases are only $10,000. I mean,
Right.
I'm just saying,
Where's the
if the full
76?
council's looking at this and it looks like we
Yeah.
have a request of 137,000, but over here,
Yeah,
it's
not,
actually.
it wasn't accurate, and so there needs to
So
be
if
some.
we tie these together, I
There
think
needs to be
those are
some
the
footnotes
questions.
on here.
Yeah.
Right.
To
This-
Clean these up, so these equal this.
That was my question,
Yep.
because on Mark's, on the Public Works, this says 1,000,002, but that's divided between his Department
Yeah.
5
Right.
and the water
And
and
the 400, and the
sewer.
400 for this,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all
So
over the
it,
place.
it's not,
Correct.
I did the same thing, and
Yeah.
that's why,
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we could have that with this to hand to the whole council, I think it's really simple.
Yeah, we
Line
need
by
some
line, it's
footnotes
like
on those
this.
sheets and
Yeah.
some red lines.
Or even just another column on this, so we don't have 3 pieces of paper, we can just talk about the net requests.
Yeah.
Right? The
Yeah,
net
no,
of
that
this.
makes sense. And again, I'll add, what you observed is correct, that when department heads submit this, they're submitted based on what they perceive as their budget. And this is organized by accounting code.
Mhm.
Right.
So they have multiple accounting codes that touch the place.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So while this had that 100,000, he's got 100
Yeah,
spread
different
through
geo,
here
yep.
that you aren't seeing. So we made those adjustments to be correct
Yep.
in order of accounting code.
Yep.
Where department heads, they're just, hey,
Yeah, right.
I got this one.
No,
this
I
one, this
totally
one.
get it, but when we bring
Yeah.
this to council, if it just
Yeah.
broke down what exactly are these variances for,
the
then I
other
think it's
thing
pretty
that I
simple.
want to understand is when I look at this and we're talking roughly $1,700,000, is that money we have?
No.
Thank you. So even the big ones, that's not in our water, sewer,
They
storm
are.
drain, those are there.
We have those in reserve.
Those big ones, which is over $1 million or $1 million of this. And then, so then our other big,
Yeah, we're looking for about 700,000.
okay, and
If we have it.
300 or 500
By
of it
500
is yours,
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
that.
so now we're looking for 200.
So we're in a reasonable,
Yeah.
well,
This doesn't show the revenue side of the equation.
no, I
Right.
know,
That's right.
Right.
Which is a
Right.
piece that,
right.
well, thank you.
If, you gotta look at it, Mac, if we budgeted correctly in the beginning,
Right,
outside of something that you left as a reserve as part of that last budget process, the question becomes, what new revenue sources or greater revenue did we have over the first 10 months of the year?
right.
And
So we're
that's
looking at
not
$163,000,
in sales tax.
right.
You're also probably gonna get about $90,000 more in property taxes,
Okay,
back of the envelope, my envelope. So you've got the 163, the 90.
Would it be a lot more than
Then you'll
90?
get another 160 on top of that, so you probably have somewhere in general fund about $300,000 more in revenue at the.
okay, and then what we're looking at here doesn't qualify for REIT, because we're gonna have maybe 90 plus,
Probably not.
okay.
You're talking about the streetlights, the undergrounding?
No, I was,
Well,
yeah, I would just,
Any
any
of
of
them.
these,
Any of
any
Oh,
of
that,
them.
that's the exercise we're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where
That is-
the
that is-
eligible funding
That
sources
that
are
is
all
the
of this.
exercise. That's where finance is right now, Ben.
Okay,
Okay.
That's what we're trying to
Because he's
figure
gone through with the mayor's gone through, council, the departments
Right.
did their thing. We came back, we compiled it. Monday, Tuesday, we sat down with the mayor. We went through all this, he redlined this, we discussed it, we talked about what needed to be changed. And now you have that process now on
So
your.
at
So
our-
when we present this to the council at work study, will we have the revenue, or do we present it as just, this is the expenditure side of the?
Well,
review?
the revenue's coming out of that revenue sources hearing, which is the following,
So we would present this as just being the expenditure side?
Right, and then you're gonna
More to
fi-
come.
right, and then you'll have the revenue sources hearing the next Tuesday night, and I think that's probably when, at the end of that hearing, you probably would wanna say, somebody needs to message to the public, hey, we've heard what the, mid-biennial review looked like, and we're
Yeah.
working through that, through the finance, we're gonna have another work study in November. Here's the revenues, what's the additional revenues, so then you bring it right together, and then when you have that November work study,
you've got it right.
to tie the two
Together,
together.
yeah, okay.
And then in December, we make the adjustments and we start the next
So
year.
by the next finance committee meeting at the end of October, do you think we would have a good idea of what that probably would look like?
yeah, you will have
As long
already-
as
you
we're
will have
after
already
the
done
revenue, yeah.
You won't know the property tax. You
Right.
won't know the property tax.
Well, but we'll have a trend.
Yeah.
Well, we
you'll
have a
ideas.
library levy in November that'll affect us next year.
Well,
The
we got
property
that.
tax is a tough one because it doesn't come in like
Correct.
monthly or quarterly or whatever. So
Right.
it's tough to establish a trend with property
I
tax.
see. Yeah.
But our assessed value
Is up. It's up.
is up.
It's up, yep.
And new construction.
In new construction.
Right.
So I guess very quickly,
Does that make sense to you, Noah?
It does, and I guess I want to make an apology because I'm new here, so I'm 3 weeks on the job. Part of this is, I'm just trying to get
Mhm.
caught up on these
Right.
reports and where's the information. And
No apologies.
So-
Oh, none at all.
So-
None,
so,
this is great.
You know,
but
Yeah.
I'd like to say,
You
if
did
you
that
looked
and
at
I
the,
did.
if you looked at the Public Works Director's sheet, somebody may look at that and go, wow, what was Mark doing in the 17-18 budget? He totally missed on that. He's off by like $1.5 million. But if you really look at the two big items, one is the City of Bremerton water, because we've had
Yeah.
well 7, well 9.
I
Right.
saw that.
That was the one, and the other one is we added a project, which was the Annapolis Creek.
Because Mike
So-
doesn't have enough to do.
Right.
It's not to Mike yet, this is a design. We're doing the design.
Right, this is a meeting, but those are really the two big ones, and then we added,
and those total nearly $1 million.
and then we added
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
100,000 just because we've also had an unusual,
And we're
breakdown of costs.
working through that stuff.
Right, anyway, so I want to let you know, it wasn't like
Yeah.
we missed the budget, we
Right,
just
right.
had some
I-
big.
Well, that
I know
Anders,
that these aren't rose-colored, I don't think, but were there any projects that were determined that we don't need the funding because we
that's-
won't be able to
that-
get to them
that
by
was
the
my
year?
question.
That was the discussion we had for the undergrounding, and
Mr.
no,
Martin's
we can't not do the pedestrian pathway, because we've got a window that the funding has to be spent on. Tremont has to happen, McCormick Village Park
Well, I
has a
understand we had
grant.
those major projects, but were there any of these other little ones that we wanted, that there's
We
no
could
way we're
not
gonna
pay,
get
we could
done?
not fix potholes.
There.
So did you deduct money for the
No,
potholes?
I didn't.
Okay, that's my point.
I didn't feel that was palatable. I mean, we're gonna,
with our TBD,
yeah, we
it
got.
would be real
It
hard
has to be
to,
spent.
it would be real hard not to.
That was where we started, is what could we not do? And that's November's work study. I'm gonna bring forward that list of projects for all of us to look at, and I don't see anything on there that we can push back.
The first part of the review is that we are successfully on track
Yeah.
of what the biennial budget, policy-wise, was put forth by the city council. And that we're having success on that. The second question is what needs to be cleaned up, and there are some minor pieces that are just cleanup that the council would take action on. Then the third part that we're really debating here is what's come along that we want to do an additional. That's really not a mid-biennial review
Correct.
issue.
Right.
That's, hey, what more can we do? So that's my caution.
Right, but what I want to say with the 500,000 for the retail water purchase, how are we coming along with our wells, and how can we eliminate that expense?
It's.
Because we
there's
have money
two-
for the wells, right?
Two things. Well, yes, we do, and no, we don't. It's the capital budget that didn't get approved, is parked, our
The state
500,
capital.
the state capital.
Right,
So that stopped.
That stopped our well. And the other piece is, the other source that we don't have. I mean, we have a water quality issue in well 9 that we're gonna go out to bid here soon on that and start that project. That doesn't provide additional source. All it does is
No,
provide
right.
better quality water.
right.
The other source is
It stopped because of the capital budget.
there's two.
Okay.
There's one that the capital budget, well 13. The other is the McCormick well. The fastest way we can get that to come online is this development agreement that we're
Correct.
working through, and that they will build the well for us. And then I would say it's 60-40. I mean, probably 40% of it is an ongoing expense that comes from McCormick Woods all the time because we lack source out there and always have. That'll get solved from the development agreement. 60% of this, though, was just unplanned catastrophic failures of two of our wells this year.
Right, we had, remember, well 8 was down significant time. Well 7's been down for 2 months now. Well 9 has been down for a while, and so we had burned through what we'd had for the 2 years between, hot, dry summer and having sources that, then we were explaining to Noah the other day, this is just kind of, Murphy's Law where we got really hot weather, we've got more demand, and it put a lot more pressure on a very aged, I mean, the Melcher pump station pump went out. That thing's been running since 1950. You know, that's that era. And so we're putting extra demand on equipment that's old. And then.
There's light at the end of the tunnel.
So, right.
Right.
But you're right, there's the source, there's two sources that we need to get implemented to stop this.
But we're making progress,
But
other
we're
than the
making-
capital budget.
Other than the
Sitting
capital,
around.
which I'm assured that in January, we're in there. We just gotta get reauthorized, so. One last 30-second thing here is, how are you guys feeling about the retreat for next year? And I just wanna, I mean, we're gonna get pressure to do it right out of the gate, like in March. I think it would be more beneficial in June or July leading up
Prior
to.
to budget development.
By budget development, you know.
I agree.
So, okay, so we'll talk about that at November's work study, but I just kind of wanted to poll this group and see what you
That's my
thought.
opinion.
Okay,
I think it needs to be tied better to the budget.
I do too, so.
Yeah, and then maybe what you do though is in January or February, depending on the outcome of the elections, maybe at a work study, there's a 30-minute agenda item on there just to kind
There are
of
some
review,
things that-
bring them, if there's new council members, maybe to bring them current with what our, you know, just update them on what our retreat was from last year.
And maybe it's one-on-one with
It could be
myself
that
and
too.
staff and I. if
Yeah.
we-
Yeah, and
I
I'm-
think that's a better way to do it.
I'm feeling a little different on that, in that I can understand the need for it to be close to the budget. But I'm also seeing this retreat as being less transactional and more philosophical. And perhaps Noah and I, Rob and I have had conversations about a brand for the city, not a logo, not colors or anything like that, but for us to have the same vision, use the same language, messaging, so that if you, and I would like some of that discussion. Now, I would envision a retreat, doesn't have to be, but I'm willing to take it into economic development, because that's the committee that I chair. But I think it's a council discussion. So I'm seeing more than just the transactional retreat, that these are the things we want to
I wouldn't argue
accomplish.
that, it's just that, is that time sensitive to the point where it needs to be done in February versus June?
I have had
Because I think you can do both.
I have had conversations with a resident and business owner who also professionally does strategic planning for major corporations. And his opinion was that the branding needed and the vision needed to be done prior even to the designs we're doing, our commercial design review.
But I
Yeah,
think that's, I mean, if we're gonna go down that road, you bring in a professional that does that. I think what they're gonna do to the council and staff, and a lot of people are just gonna ask a lot of questions, give bullet points. They're gonna take that back. They're gonna develop the branding statements. They're gonna develop the, you know, what I mean, so that's almost,
I think what Beck's offering up here is we have somebody in our community that professionally does that
Yeah.
and is willing to volunteer his time.
Yep.
And so maybe it starts at economic development, and maybe it's a big chunk of a February or a March work study that we devote an hour or
Yeah,
more
I-
to it.
Right.
And a work study, so here's the work that came out of economic development and their
that's my point. I think
recommendation.
that's so
and-
specific what that is transactional. That's a very
Okay.
specific deliverable that we could put that on a work study.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and solidify having him come to economic
Yeah,
development. I'm
that's
hoping
great.
that he'll be there in October. Yeah, but again, we have someone who works nationally,
Great.
most of his accounts are in New York, who lives right here in Port Orchard, and if he's willing to volunteer his time.
Yeah.
I love
Let's
it.
take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna lean more towards June or July for that. Now,
I think you're,
go ahead.
no, I'm just gonna say, I think scheduling might become a little more difficult when you get into June and July too.
Okay, so
June, I
we'll
think would be
go.
better than July,
June.
but do it early so that we can get it on before
Yeah,
something else.
well, we
Yeah,
get it on the
before school's
calendar,
out.
Yeah.
and so the other piece too is, Claire has done a good job for us, and you don't have to hear me talk as much. you know, is it worthwhile to spend that $1,500 on a facilitator? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll communicate with her too.
Next meeting,
Yes. Let's have one.
My calendar is completely open.
I was gonna say, you can put your calendar away.
how about the 20th,
October?
October 20th, Friday?
Fine by me.
It's a definite maybe, because I do my calendar the old-fashioned way, and October 20th really rings a bell for me, but I'm not sure what it is. But if we're doing a 7:30 here, I will simply send an email if I can't, if that does not work.
Okay. For now, will that work for you, Noah?
Yeah, for now that works for me.
You fine with it, Alan?
I think it's great.
You would prefer it earlier? Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, he wants to start at 6 next month.
Hey, did you say October 5th, Alan?
Yeah.
That works
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
Friday, October 20th, 7:30 here.
It's on the calendar.
Anything for the good of the order? Meeting's adjourned.